Two, one, we're going live. You're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. We're going to do three more Indians, and just like we did last week, tonight we're going to talk about King Philip, Logan, Chief Logan, and Chief Brant. And so these were some of the craziest stories that you can get out there. But they were true. These were Indians or something else. And we're going to learn all about them. And then we're going to have some great stories by David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. And he'll be with us. And right there he is. And welcome, welcome.
I forgot to get coffee. Greetings and blessings, all y'all out there. We say thank you for coming and being with us. And we always hope and pray that you're doing as well as possible.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. And like I said, tonight we're going to learn about Indians. It seems like we're working our way up the coast. Last week we did, we've been doing South America. Then we did Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi area. And now we're up into the higher areas of Boston and New York. We're going to be doing those kind of places like that. Now, some of these guys, we've already read about their fathers, and these are their descendants who seem to cause a lot of trouble along the way.
They wouldn't do that now, would they?
Oh, yes, they would. Okay, so, but anyway, I want to say hello to everybody in the chat. I know a lot of people are over at Ryder Lee's, who's talking with David Dubine. Great show tonight. If you haven't seen it, go out and check it out. Ryder's got a great show, and he's got a great guest on tonight. But I'm sure everybody will be coming in a little later. But Chloe is in the house. And we got Paradox Fossils. Isby, he says, greetings, Soul Tribe and Isby family, prosperity, peace, love, and favor is upon all together tonight. Yes, he was the big winner in the costume contest at Nina the Mystic. And if you haven't checked that out, go right on over there to Nina the Mystic and watch our show where we had a bunch of people dress up in costume, including myself. And we had a lot of fun over there. And winners of the big costume prize was Isby. And I ain't even gonna tell you what he was because he did real good and won the prize. Anyway.
Salute, Isby.
Yes. Regine Hutchinson's in the house, greeting him with favor and abundance and goodness. Witchy Moon. Here, but dozy, just listening. Well, you just listen as we tell you some great stories from beyond the future's past into the past as we take that long trip down the history lane to a long forgotten era of long forgotten people, especially the Indians, long forgotten. But in the days
told in a different perspective too, not from your history books that have been whitewashed.
That's right. I'm telling it from the famous Indians from this book I got from 1842, which is literally falling apart as I read it. But it is a good book, and it has really been interesting, and hopefully I can glue it back together because I did see a copy on one of them sites. It was like $150 for this book, but I got it for a little cheaper than that. And I couldn't find a PDF for it either. So this is one of a kind. Okay. We're going to talk about King Philip, as he was known to the English. I love how these books, they talk about the English and the British and the Tories, and I've learned so much out of that. I still don't exactly know what a Tory is, but they're, but anyway, they're
a Tory was just like a Democrat or a Republican.
Okay.
I mean, that's all. because there was the Tory party, the Labor Party, this party, much like, the early American, it wasn't Democrats and Republicans,
Well, that's for sure. That is. Well,
it
we're gonna
was still the kind of philosophies, but they were, we went through in American history, the parties went through different changes of names. I can't think of them right now, but
oh yeah, there was the Whigs and the
right.
Republicans, and then there was the Democrats, and then they changed over to some other parties, and it went through a bunch of different swings.
So the Tories were nothing more than a political party. So, which way they swung, I can't tell you. I can't remember that part, whether they were more Democratic or Republican, but back then things were different. So, but the Tories, yeah.
Well, we did a show on Massasoit. He was a Sketchum Indian, tribe of Indians who dwelt in the neighborhood of Boston. And he was very friendly with the English. And he had 2 sons, which he sent over to the English to get taught and learn and schooled and things like that. And they came back. His eldest son was Alexander. He inherited the authority of Massasoit when he died, and after his reign of only a few months in 1662. His younger brother inherited the leadership of the tribe, and this was a tribe of the Nagas, or the Sketchum, tribe of the Indians they were Nagasids mostly, or was it Nagas? So the Sketchums, but anyway, we talked about these. His father, Massasoit, was very friendly with the Pilgrims, helped them get through the winters and stuff like that. He would have been technically he would have been the guy that would have been like helping the Pilgrims out, kind of thing.
He was the Hiawassee maybe of his time and area.
Yeah, well, Massasoit was pretty poor, but his tribe
still helped him.
Yeah, but he helped the English get started. He didn't cause war with them, things like that, and became friends and realized that, well, whatever. Anyway, but by this time in 1661, the population of New England was probably around 40,000. The Indians at the same time had about 30,000. The English. Okay, so what happened is Philip, whose real name, Indian name, would have been Metacom. He, let's see, the English is ambitious in his spirit. He nicknamed him King Philip because he was head of these. He was chief of the Pocanets of the Wampangos, a tribe of the Nagasets. Yes, I was right. Who dwelt around the Bay of Rhode Island. So if you live around that area, Lucky Smith, you probably know where we're talking about, because I'm going to mention a bunch of places. And they lived on around Mount Hope, down by now called Bristol. And remember, Massasoit, he lived on Mount Hope. Remember, that was his home. He was very proud of it. He even died there. Remember, he lived very poor and whatever. Yes, barely surviving. And remember, the English had come there to stay with them, and his teepee was full of fleas, and they couldn't believe they just slept on mats. They didn't even have food to give him. Yes. So anyway, getting on with this, Lucky Smith said it sounds like when George Washington was left public office, he cautioned the nation to not divide themselves in political parties. Yes, but we did it anyway. Yes, we did. Anyway, King Philip, or Philip, we'll just call him Philip, immensely, he thought the settlers were treacherous. He didn't like them. They were encouraging the Indians to give their land up for firearms, and to give their more land and trade their goods. He knew the scheme was going on. He was like, hey, you're giving up our land for some firearms and pots and pans and English stuff, right? Not good. It upset him greatly. And then when the Indians finally got firearms, they cornered Philip, and because they seemed like he was going to cause trouble, and they made him give up his firearms. Okay, yeah,
how ironic, right?
Yeah. By this time, the Indians were giving up their throwing their bows down. The ancient bows and arrows were now thrown aside, and Philip was active in studying the condition of the settlers, and made himself acquainted with their strength and policies and designs. This guy was not stupid. He conceived a deep foresight and carried the most crafty in preserving this scheme. White's constant show of friendship was a general combination the Indian tribes could be formed, and he thought that he could do away with them with a single blow. He calculated a plot against the colonists, and he wanted their destruction. He was plotting to get them all. But anyway, in April 17 or 6, I keep wanting to say 17, but this was 1671, was discovered to be making warlike preparations. The English summoned him and to a conference with the Plymouth government at Tanutan, to which place he came with a band of his warriors, attired in paint and armed as for battle. A council was held in the meeting house, one side of which was occupied by the Indians, the other by the English. One on one side and one on the other. Philip charged the whites with desperations upon his cornfields, and declared that he was arming not against the English, but against the Nagasets. This was contradicted by such proofs that Philip was utterly confronted and driven as to a confession of the whole plot, declaring that it was the naughtiness of his own heart that put him upon the rebellion, and nothing of any provocation from the English. He signed a submission to his counselors, agreeing to give up all the firearms among his people, to be kept by the government of Plymouth as long as they should see reason. The guns had with him were accordingly given up and remained as promised to be delivered at Plymouth at a specified time. The disarming of his men does not speak much of Philip's words. He certainly repented of his step and befailed. Let's see. Oh, he was to pay a price for all of this. Philip, however, foreseen this, and he was mad. Philip had a coat, a buckskin with thick beads. Now, meaning that these beads were like money to the Indians anyway. The counterment was valued at 20 pounds. The beads are their money. And there are two sorts, blue beads and white beads. The first is their gold, and the last their silver. These they work out of certain shells so cunningly, and neither Jew nor devil can counterfeit. Philip had the dress to satisfy the government of Boston, and a favorable report was carried back to Plymouth. Okay. Let's see. By 1671, Philip confessed himself an author of the troubles and stipulation to pay 100 pounds of such things he had. And so there you go. He was paid £100, but back in those days, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and they, so he might have had to have, 100 furs,
Mm-hmm.
and that would have only been like, 20 pounds. So he had whatever, what do you call it? The exchange rate. So
Yeah.
what the English considered a pound, he had to pay 100 pounds, but then whatever he gave or whatever he was bartering or whatever, they were setting the price.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
he got cheated. Not only did he have to pay 100 pounds, but he surely got cheated in the deal. They did not give him fair value for the things that he brought in order to exchange for that 100 pounds. I just would like to
Oh yeah.
bring that out.
Wampum. Yes, they call it
Wampum.
wampum in the book here too.
Wampum.
Yes. Thank you, Lucky. Thank you. Lucky's right on top of this.
Wampum.
Okay. Furthermore, he was also to deliver 5 wolf heads if he could get them, or as many as he could procure until they came to 5 wolf heads yearly. Okay, the Treaty of Plymouth restored tranquility to the colonies for 2 or 3 years, but in 1674, the hostiles, which had repeatedly lulled by negotiations, burst suddenly out of its fury of the war. Now, all this time, the peace had lasted nearly 3 years, but the threatened destruction of New England colonies. The first act of this war was the murder of John Sassamon, I guess, by the Indians. The man was a subject of Philip and a roving, adventurous character. He lived with the English. This guy was like balancing the balance beam between the Indians and the whites, the English. So he was converted to Christianity, and he learned and acquainted the art of reading and writing and translated a portion of the Bible into Indian. That's how smart this guy was. As for a time, he was employed as a schoolmaster in Nantucket, not Nantucket, but it says Nantucket. Then he returned to his people, and he was engaged by Philip as his secretary. So he was, a translator and wrote things down for him, which was really good. He was received him in a friendly manner, and his possessions and sincere reverence. It appears that he had gone back to paganism when he went to the Indians. Of course you would, and rejoiced to his own people. Saxon was rebaptized. He went back to the white people and rebaptized in a church, officiated as a Sunday teacher then. Boy, he swung one way and then he swung the other. You know what I mean? This guy was all over the place. In 1672, he was sent as a missionary to the Nemics and other Indians in the Middleborough. While living there, he obtained intelligence of Philip's plot. You notice, all these stories I read, it always seems like one of the Indians turns traitor, and gives up the other Indians. Always. It always seems like that. One says, I can avoid all the bloodshed. I'll just go tell those English people. I'll go tell the British people. I'll help you. I'll help you. Just don't let them kill all our people. And then they go and kill all the people. So he went to Plymouth. He told them all about it. He was perfectly aware of the risk, and he ran in making his disclosure. He enjoyed strict secrecy upon the English, assuring them that if the Indians suspected him of giving the information of their designs, his life would be forfeited. But he did it anyway. Philip found out, and in 1675, this guy went missing, never to be heard from again, pretty much. and the Indians that were, they found him. It appeared that his neck had been broken. Yeah. It was murder. And they found some Indians, and they said 3 Indians were arrested and put upon trial in Plymouth. Well, and then they confessed to the guilt of the dead corpse. Of course they did. Philip, he was pissed. Put it that way. He was pissed. And at this point, he tells the English, he says, oh, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything. I'm just putting this in simple words because this is the Nagasets. He gathered all the Nagasets together in a plot. He gathered to furnish 4,000 warriors. 4,000 warriors, and he was training them, but they weren't really ready. That would have given them a victory, but they decided to attack because of this guy getting killed. First attack was made on Swaney, a frontier town, on the 24th of June, 1675. The Indians they killed all the inhabitants, burnt the town to the ground. Put it that way. As they were returning, they killed all the inhabitants. They were returning from a meeting and they wiped them out. Can you imagine a slew of Indians coming down upon you, like 4,000 of them, wipe you out? Burnt the town to the ground. This seemed to be how things were done. And a few of the colonists went to a cabin, some settlers' cabin, and they fought off the Indians for many hours. Bullets sprayed over the cabin until finally the Indians decided to burn it down with the people in it. And as the people ran out, they shot them. One lady was left. She was holding her baby, and they shot through the cabin, killed the baby right in her arms, and shot her too. She did survive. Of course, the Indians were scalping everybody and killing everybody in their path. This was terrible. They brought her to Philip, and she had a talk with him and said he was nice and friendly, but for the most part, he didn't care. He'd been violated by the white people and, the English, and he was having no part of it. He was mad. So the Indians, were in the woods howling, went to other towns. They howled and made crazy noises, scaring the colonists from their houses. The colonists' minds were filled with terror. Remember, they're all like, voodoo and witchcraft and anything that scares the hell out of them, right? The next town was Swaney. It was immediately abandoned by the inhabitants and a few days later burnt by the Indians. Taunton, Middlesbrough, and Dartmouth quickly after shared the same fate. The colonists flew in arms. Massachusetts sent companies of volunteers to the Plymouth colony, but the Indians dared not face the English in an open field. They were smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
were.
They fought in the woods. They were pursued into the swamps, but then the Indians came out and they burnt and ravaged, plundering and laying waste to more towns. By the 18th of June, Philip had a very strong force. Of course, he's building. The more he's winning, the Indians want to join. Anyway,
get rid of them white people.
Okay. Anyway, they went around. The swamp was surrounded, but the Indians blockaded. 13 days later, the Indians made their escape. They all got out. While they were waiting, they all constructed canoes and floated down the river. Philip fled to the Connecticut River. This is where he starts to be on the run. His finances being low at the time, he cut his coat, which was made entirely of wampum peg. That's what Lucky was saying. It was called wampum peg, but here it is called wampum peg, to pieces and distributed out throughout the country among the Nimpucks, the Sketchums, and other Indians. Philip's coat appears to have been a kind of portable treasury. In September, a company between 80 and 90 English under Captain Lathrop of Beverly marched from Hadley to Greenfield, bringing away corn and other valuables from the town. having loaded their teams and commenced their march homeward. This is sad. So they're going along. They're gathering grapes alongside the road. How nice, right? They were ambushed and attacked by the Indians at Sugarloaf Hill. I don't know if it's still named Sugarloaf Hill, but that's what it was called. The attack was so sudden, and the English were so unprepared in defense that before they could take any measures of their safety, almost every man was killed. The Indians were nearly 1,000 in number. Wow, 1,000 against 80 or 90 guys that were picking grapes. Wow. Some of the Middleborough and Bridgewater have hammock swamp, or have hammock swamp. You can hear some strange noises there. I bet you. The Indians were nearly 1,000. Okay, so they got this guy, Captain Mosley, and he had 70 English under his head. Well, they came running. In the Indians joined in a retreat under 100 English and 60 Mohegans. I don't know if it says Mohegans, and I don't know if it's Mohicans or Mohegans because the spellings are different from those days.
They would have been the same, but the spelling back in those days was different. So
yes.
Yep. Same peoples. Yep. It's a tribe. Yep. The Mohicans.
And see, this is where I get so confused. They enlist Indians to help them fight Indians. And, and they didn't realize, because after a while, the Mohegans were wiped out too. The attack was renewed. The Indians were compelled to retreat and return through his company. The persons fell were choice young men, the flower of Essex County. Well, anyway, Philip, he kept scaring the people, and he laid waste to everything in his path. The tomahawk and scalping knife were constantly busy. The mangled carcasses and disjointed limbs of their victims were suspended upon trees to terrify those who escaped. Troops of savages hung upon the skirts of the towns and villages. Like lightning on the edges of the clouds, Brookfield and Deerfield were set on fire. Hadley was suddenly attacked while the people were at a meeting. In the midst of the conversation and the tumult was unknown individual suddenly made his appearance in the town, rallied and disheartened people, cheered them into battle. The Indians were defeated. The Indians disappeared into the woods. The attack on Lancaster is vividly described by Mary Rowland, who was carried into captivity by the Indians. 42 persons sought shelter under her roof. Oh yeah, this is the lady that was attacked. Yeah, anyway. And the Indians shot thick bullets and rattled the house. Oh boy. Yeah. The bullets flying so thick went through she says, through my side and through my poor child in my arms. The house was taken and a horrible massacre followed. Yeah, these Indians didn't stop for nothing. They killed everybody and everything in their path. In Southeast.
Let me say something here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, I'm not saying that they should have killed the women and children, but at this point, Philip saw them as invaders.
Yes.
I mean, he was smart enough to realize these folks were taking over because they were trading land for guns.
Yes.
Now, I want to remind folks that back in 1670-ish, 75 is when they're having this war. The type of gun, that's not a repeater. I mean, they've got to put a ball down in the thing. They got to put the powder down. So they got to,
yep.
They were flintlock. They were not a rifled barrel at all. So they just pointed and shot and hoped that they hit something. I mean, seriously, these guns were very crude. Okay. So whether or not the Indians were trying to shoot the baby and the mother, I think it was more like, from 20 feet away, that that lead ball was going anywhere.
Well, like I said, she says the bullets were just flying through there thick. They were just shooting into the cabin.
Right.
You know,
They
anywhere
couldn't really aim it. They just pointed.
Point and shoot. Yes.
But
Best you can.
anyway, what was the other thing I was going to bring up? Oh, you mentioned earlier, and just because I'm thinking about it, the guy that they killed, the one that was, went back and forth. Think about this: if he was the secretary or helped out King Philip, that means that they were writing things down. If he was the secretary. So my point is that they thought, a lot of people think that the natives were stupid, didn't write anything down ever. So here's King Philip, who's got this, whoever he is, but as his secretary. And if he was a secretary, that means he was writing stuff down.
Well, here's another thing.
And they're not, my point is they're not, this idea of savages, they weren't that. If they were writing stuff down, they weren't that stupid. But
that thing is he was it says he was translating the Bible into Indian, and so that means that so that means they had a written language,
right?
So how stupid were they if they had writing? Hey, I'll write you a note. I'll write I can translate this into words and put it down on paper. Right. And so that's not stupid. I mean,
so let me bring up something else. It's like that they hung the bodies and pieces and stuff up into trees and all and scalped them. Yep. My curiosity is what made them be so brutal?
Yeah, well, I think it was a scare tactic. I mean, the Indians were very brutal,
killing a bunch of people, but scalping them and hanging them up in trees. Now that's a whole nother level of brutality. I'm just saying. So what if he what isn't written down is, why would he be so brutal? Maybe that was because the brutality was brought upon them, is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it was, because it was like, oh, these guys we're going to kill all these. Like in the beginning, hey, this guy got killed, we're going to retaliate, and here's the 3 guys, we're going to, kill them. Right. The colonists weren't all that nice to the Indians, Well, anyway,
I didn't want to interrupt you, but but go ahead.
We're moving on. Well, Philip, he ravaged the western frontier, and he moved into the Nagasset country, and he made peace with them, and he got an alliance with them, and it fed his army up to 1,500 men. No, he rallied a bigger, with more powerful efforts. Another army was raised of 1,500 men by the 3 colonies of Massachusetts, Plymouth, and Connecticut, and placed under the command of Joshua Winslow. They took the field in 1675 and directed their march toward Nagasset County. Now, this is quite the thing. So you got 1,500 men, and they're headed out in November. Now, needless to say, it gets cold and snowy. The Indians hid in a thick swamp. They piled up. They had 500 wigwams on a superior structure that were surrounded by high and thick walls, a hedge of fallen trees, a rod of thickness encircled the walls. The wigwams were fortified with baskets of tubs of corn piled around them on the inside as to render them bulletproof. The whole fort comprised an area of 5 acres and was skirted by a body of water over which the trunk of a tree had been laid over as a bridge. The only assailable point was defended by works which would have been no credit to modern engineering. The blockhouse and bastions flanked it on either side and exposed the assailants to heavy crossfire in the stronghold. Okay, 3,000 Indians had taken up their residence here, with munitions of war and provisions for the whole winter. Imagine that. Wow.
On
Well,
5 acres.
on 5 acres. Yeah. They were kind of
Oh.
stuffed in there, but they had all the food and everything they wanted. They must have been a hell of a fort.
Yeah, well, not only that, but they were right next to the water, so
Yes,
they
on
could
all sides.
fish and so but yeah, so whatever they needed. But the interesting thing that you said was they hung baskets of corn.
Well, they piled up, yeah, they piled around them on the inside to render the place bulletproof.
Right, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You know, I mean that that tells me they weren't stupid at all.
No, these guys had it figured out. And needless to say, they had a fort. Okay, but the season was very severe, and the march of the English was so retarded that hindered, that Philip had full information on an expedition on foot against him. Nearly a month elapsed before the different bodies of troops marching from separate points formed a junction about 18 miles from Philip's headquarters. Their army was obligated to camp in an open field under the December skies. God, that must have been horrible. December camping in Massachusetts. Geez. Without tents to cover them, oh boy, an intense cold prevailed and the air was filled with snow. The provisions of the army were nearly exhausted, and it was necessary to make the attack without delay. No Englishman in the army was acquainted with that part of the country, and from the abundance of snow on the ground, there seemed hardly a possibility of discovering the stronghold of the Indians. Wow. And again, here we go. Of the Indians, by fortunate accident, as I was saying before, by fortunate accident, an Indian named Peter had been taken prisoner. This man, who had probably lived among the English some time previous, was prevailed upon to guide the army to Philip. Following his directions, they pushed forward, and about midday on the 19th of December reached the swamp where the fort stood. The attack was instantly made. The advance body attempted to pass the narrow bridge, but could only march two abreast and were swept off by the fire from the fort. Others supplied their places and were shot down. 6 captains and a large number of men were killed, and the English were on the point of being repulsed in this. Philip, this is the biggest fight, I swear. You remember, there's 1,500 of these guys against what, 3,000 Indians? You know, Philip immediately put this guy to death. Such was the stern and inflexible resolutions of the savage chieftain. Oh, no. Sorry. Some guy here. Oh, I skipped a page. This is what anyway, they were under the small party. Captain Mosley had some means of other past the impediments, scaled the palisades and got within the fort. This is when things go bad. You know, they got the fort, they're impenetrable, but somehow this Captain Mosley scales the sides with his men, got within the fort, and they were they were hand-to-hand combat with the Indians. The cry rose, "They run, they run!" The Indians were struck with panic, and the English gathered fresh courage, poured in greater numbers upon the bridge, effected a passage, and assaulted the main part of the fort. The battle now raged with uttermost fury for 3 hours worth of fighting. The English forced their way into the entrenchments and drove the Indians from the wigwams, wigwam to wigwam, with terrible slaughter. Men, women, and children were shot, and the hewn down emissary and lay in heaps upon the snow. Such of them as escaped with swords and bullets of the English dispersed and hid themselves in the woods. A third part of the whole Nagaset tribe was supposed to have been perished in this battle. Wow. The English had 80 killed and 150 wounded. Then they set fire to the wigwams and abandoned the place, being obliged to march 18 miles through a snowstorm before their wounds could be dressed. Philip did escape from the battle. Then there was such a break. He gathered another army. His allies were, worried, that he was being defeated. Once you're defeated, your popularity goes way down. He hunted from place to place in the summer of 1676. We find him in a small band of followers. Now he's down to a small band. Of course, he's being hunted down. In July, he made an attack upon. He's still trying to attack, even though he's trying to reprise his worthiness. In July, he made an attack upon Taunton, but was repulsed by Captain Church, who took many prisoners. Philip fled to the woods again. He was attacked again at Bridgewater, and 10 of his men were killed. He narrowly escaped. He had to disguise himself. He narrowly escaped being made prisoner, but by shaving his hair and otherwise disguising himself, he eluded the search of his pursuers. Wow, this guy's a genius. Mary Wins is in the house. Hello, Mary. Anyway, the situation of Philip now became desperate. The fallible Captain Church followed hard after him and tracked him through every culvert hiding place. On the 1st of August, he came up with him and killed and took 130 of his men. Philip again escaped. So this guy was relentless, this Captain Church.
He's a wily fox.
Yes. And again, Captain Church was informed of his hiding place. Such was the stir. The act severely accomplished his ruin. The brother of a man thus slain feared the same fate, deserted and gave See, here we go with another Indian deserting. Brother of a man thus slain feared the same fate, deserted and gave Captain Church information of Philip's hiding place, offering to lead him to the spot. On the little emissary skirted by Murray Swamp at the foot of Mount Hope, his old capital, Philip had made his last stand with a few faithful followers. They lay down to sleep at night on the 11th of August without any suspicion that the enemy was coming. The English came up with their muskets in a report of gun in the morning. They woke from their sleep. The English had him surrounded in the swamp. Philip was met by 2 of his enemies, the one an Englishman and the other an Indian named Alderman. Yeah, they knew not who he was, but allowed him to come within point blank shot and then took aim of him. The morning being rainy, the Englishman's gun misfired, but Alderman's went off. Philip was shot through the heart and fell upon his face in the mud and water with his gun beneath him. Philip had a mutilated hand by a bad gun burst. The pistol in his hand blew up, so he had a mutilated hand. That's how they identified him. And of course, Captain Church was given cheers and hurrahs because he had finally killed this guy. Let's see. By the end of this whole conflict, the great tribe of the Nagassets of old, the leading tribe of New England, was almost entirely wiped out. Hardly 100 men remained. The last chief capable of leading the Indians into battle had fallen. Philip's son was killed too, and son was transported to Bermuda and sold as a slave. By the end of all this, the war, the colonies, $500,000 was worth of damage, and the lives of about 600 men and a large population. 13 towns and 600 houses were burnt, and there were hardly a family in the country that had not occasion to mourn a death of a relative. Wow. So again, you know, they just seem to, what happens is the Indians didn't realize no matter what happens, they just send more. The white man, well, you killed 80 of our guys, we're going to send 500. Oh, you killed 50 of them, we're going to send 1,500. You can't win. Well, you know, and the whites, or the English, I got to admit, they came up, marched through the snow, no tents. How unprepared were they? You know what I mean? Let's go for a march, guys. It's only, 25, 30 miles into the swamp. Let's not bring some tents and some extra food. We'll take 1,500 men. We'll all starve out there until we find the Indians. Don't you worry, right?
I mean, basically, they had a blanket.
Yeah.
Basically, they had a blanket sleeping out in the open. And I've had to sleep out in the open before, but it wasn't in the snow. And it was cold, but still, nope, nope.
Yeah.
Them
Yeah.
were some persistent folk,
Absolutely persistent, I tell you.
So after the first battle, though, and they retreated, I'm curious he ended up with just a band of guys over the winter. Everybody went home, and all the natives, they probably had little private groups within their own little, communities, and asked themselves, is this worth it to us?
Yes, especially after the big fight, and a third of the Nagasets had gotten killed off. I mean, their whole village, all their food stores and everything gone in the middle of winter. Now they're out there starving with nothing. Their houses all burnt down to nothing. I mean, can you imagine? It's devastating. It's like, here, the women and children all killed. And that leads us up to this next guy being women and children killed.
Okay.
Next guy is Logan. He was a chief better known to the world by the eloquent and pathetic speeches which he had left as record of his misfortune and sorrows and his exploits in war. Was of the Mingo or Cayuga tribe. His father, Shinkelamus, was a personal friend of the benevolent James Logan, the friend of William Penn, and the founder of the Loganian Library of Philadelphia. And the name of the son was probably derived from this person. So it's who you know is who you get named after, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this guy was well learned. He was friends with the English. Logan, took on all, for a few portions of history, the Red Man's afforded events. He was and this was in 1774. Northern
17
frontier
or 16?
1774. We're moving up in the dates now.
All right, so this is 100 years later.
100 years later, yes.
Okay,
and
I just want to make that,
he's part of the Mingo tribe. So in 1774, like I said, William Penn, we all know William Penn. And things are getting, but things are getting pretty civilized. A few Indians were coming. They were in Ohio. A man called Captain. This is where it goes bad. So Logan's doing good. He's friends with the English. He's making peace with the tribes. Everything's going. There's peace with the Indians. Nothing is wrong. Life is good. And then this guy called Captain Michael Cresap, who seems to have acted as commander of a party, proposed to send the river and kill some Indians. Yes, this is what he did. He went up the river and he found some Indians. He gathered them up, and somehow he just killed them all. pretty much for no cause. Well, this, which torrents to innocent bloodshed, unfortunately, was unreasonable and inhumane counsel and stuff like that. The Indians didn't take to this too well. And they were like, this was the first bloodshed in a war which brought the most terrible vengeance on the heads of the aggressors. Having got a taste of blood, Cresap indulged his spirits for slaughtering without scruple or resilience. The same evening, hearing an encampment of Indians in the neighborhood below, he proceeded down the river, fell upon them while they were totally unsuspicious of any hostile design, and killed a number of them. In neither of these cases did the whites pretend any provocation of their murderers. Cresap atrocities were soon initiated by another bloodthirsty wretch named Daniel Greathouse. He collected a company of 32 men and proceeded to the mouth of the Yellow Creek, opposite which a large number of Indians had encamped. Greathouse concealed his men in a bush and crossed the river to learn the number of the savages. He went round among them, estimated the strength, and found that they were too numerous to openly be attacked. It happened that the Indians had heard of the murders committed by Cresap and began to talk of revenge. Greathouse knew nothing of this danger till one of the squaws came to. This is where the Indians go. The treachery goes. Like, oh boy, right? And always some Indian wants to tell the white man, what's going on, right? The Indian had heard of the murders committed by Cresap and began to talk of revenge. Greathouse knew nothing of the danger till one of the squaws came to him and advised him to go home, for the Indians were drinking and being angry on account of the murder of their people down the river. They might do him a mischief. Accordingly, made his way back home and consulted with his party how to ensnare the Indians. So he invited a portion of them to come across the river and get intoxicated. I got free booze, guys. Come on over. Right? And which means the whole body might be massacred in piecemeal and pieces. You can't get them all. This was done. He invited them over and with the whites to drink rum, and they crossed the river. Thinking well intentions, they complied with liquor and they were murdered in cold blood, with the exception of one little girl. The Indians in the camp heard the firing and was expected to set off in two canoes, armed warriors. The whites lay in ambush on the bank of the river, and they received them with deadly fire, and which they were all killed too. They let a couple survive and to return. A great number of the shots were exchanged across the stream. The bloody affair was brutal. They scalped their victims, one of whom was a very female who had given Greathouse a friendly caution when she visited the camp. So they even got the woman. So she told them, go away, please. We don't want no trouble. And then they killed her too. Yes. Okay.
The white people killed her.
Yes, the white people killed her.
And scalped her. So, see, it wasn't just the Indians doing the scalping. See, we were talking about the brutalities. The white man was right there doing the same thing, scalping and cutting them up and doing all this stuff. The whole of the family of Logan perished in these wanton massacres. Apparently there were more. In the last were his brother and his sister, and the latter a delicate situation, which aggravated the enormity of the crime and the arguments of sympathy for the fate of his unfortunate victim. It was while in exile excite the wonder of no man. Logan from the moment breathed nothing but vengeance against the treacherous and inhuman whites. Now remember, he'd been super friendly to the whites, praised them, acted like them, did everything,
trying to be like a white man. And yet he killed his whole family. So with this, he teamed up with a guy named Chief named Cornstalk, and he was the leader of the Indian in this war. Large bodies of warriors were collected and abandoned the usual mode of savage warfare, instead making pretty incurious upon the settlements, and they resolved to meet the whites. This is where things go badly, because you know how the Indians fight, right? And you know how the white man fights. They met the whites in an open field with a strong army and gave them battle in their own way. This new scheme of military tactics, however, they had not the skill to follow up with success, and their contest was brought to a close much more speedily than would have been the case had the savages pursued their old method of hostilities. The whites elsewhere, along with the frontier, abandoned the settlements, and others fled from the scene, warfare, or took on shelters of forts. Okay, so, this is enough to get the thing rolling anyway. But they marched down the field. See, they've been with the whites for so long that they were even fighting like them, which is sad, because they were like, let's march right out there. And, somehow or another, I know the Indians, they're brave and all on a one-to-one basis. And they're smart. So once they get out there and they go, holy shit, we're all getting killed off just standing here. This isn't good. You know what I mean? Because that's what they do. The white guys just stand there and fight like,
Well, also in that if the natives were running across an open field, the pioneer folk are crouched down shooting at them.
Yes.
So I mean, any headlong charge in an open field, but to the point where the natives had fought in the forest.
Yep.
And with kind of sort of, guerrilla warfare, if you will.
Yes.
And so they changed tactics and decided to run across an open field like the Vikings would have back in the day, but there was gunfire.
Yeah. Like I said,
I mean, by the 1700s now, the riflery, you still got to drop a ball in and you still got to pack it, but it was a lot better rifle than it was 100 years before. Just
absolutely. So anyway, the Indians got together. They didn't have the skills to fight like that. The governor got involved because the Indians are wreaking havoc. They got this Colonel Lewis to march down the mouth of the Great Kanhan, I guess it is, Kanhawn, or W-A, Kawahan. And but the Indians got together, the Mingos, the Shawnee, the Delawares, the two armies were about equal in numbers. And this was in October of 1774, 2 years before our country declared independence. The attack was very brutal. And they fought furiously. The body coming up a fight was renewed. The great slaughter. Oh boy, this is bad. You can't even read. The battle on the front, no responsibility, retreat in any direction. Cornstalk commanded the savage forces, and in this way, forgot this forest disguised himself, and all they were back to fighting in the forest. Maneuvers through the engagement by the skill as well as bravery of consummate to the general. During the whole of the day, the voice was heard throughout the ranks of his enemies. Be strong, be strong. This is the guy saying. The Virginians lost 140 killed and wounded. The losses of the Indians were about the same. The Indians retreated the next day and shortly afterward made proposals of peace. Logan, who had fought with great bravery throughout the war, refused to be supplement on the occasion. Cornstalk with 8 other chiefs visited camp and with Lord Dumore. Of course, they went to make peace, and then Logan gives a speech. And he appealed to the white man to say, if I ever he entered Logan's cabin hungry, he gave him not meat, or gave him not, he gave him meat. If ever he came cold and naked, he clothed him not. This is Logan's speech to the council, to whatever. During the course of a last long and bloody war, Logan remained idle in his cabin and an advocate for peace. Such is my love for the whites, that my countrymen pointed as they passed and said, Logan is friend of the white man. I had even thought to have lived with you, but for the injuries of one man, Colonel Cresap, the last spring in cold blood and unprovoked murder, all the relations of Logan, not even sparing my women, and my children. There runs not a drop of my blood in the veins of any living creature. This called on me for revenge. I have sought it. I have killed many. I have fully gutted my vengeance. For my country, I rejoice at the beams of peace. But do not harbor a thought that this is the joy of fear. Logan never felt fear. He will not turn on his heel to save his life. Who is there to mourn for Logan? Not one. Meaning all his relatives, everybody he knew were gone. They're all killed. But anyway, even Mr. Jefferson indulged in no exaggeration and assert that neither Greek, Roman, or modern orator had any passage that surpassed it. And of course, Logan lived on through history. Didn't do much after that. He lived in a mournful state with his great qualities, became obscured late in life by his indulgences and the vice which had been the most fatal scourge of his race, impertinence, which means he drank himself to death. He fell by assassination on a journey homeward from Detroit. So somebody killed him off.
So that was the battle at, you spoke of Ohio and along the Ohio River.
Yeah.
Was that great battle in Ohio?
It was upon the point of land at the junction of the Cowan and the Ohio rivers, having the Indian line of battle in their front and no possibility of retreat any direction. So where the Coanahan and the Ohio
So we don't know
meet.
which side of the Ohio,
No.
but that's okay. I was just curious.
No, I don't know.
But it was along the banks of the Ohio.
Yes.
It could have been in West Virginia. It could have been in Virginia. It could have been in Kentucky. I mean,
well, I think it was saying in here he was from maybe it did. I skipped over that part or something. Didn't I say what time? Along the, it was around Ohio, somewhere there, because this man, Indians were coming down the Ohio River. I don't know where that goes to, but anyway, yeah. It's all along the Ohio River.
There are two banks, Ohio's on one side. But I was just curious. It wasn't necessarily specific.
Yeah.
Anyway, it could have been both sides.
Yeah,
actually.
somewhere, because they got furious attack from the Indians who drove in advance, a body of 300 Virginians with great, so the Virginians were in that fight too. So anyway,
it could have been on the Virginia side of the river is my point.
Yes, okay. Exactly. So
Rather
anyway,
it was the Ohio River, but not necessarily in Ohio.
Well, I was going to do 3, but we went too long for that. So it's only 2 tonight. We'll save the next one for next week. But still, it all boils down to the same things. The Indians, we learned they were smart. They had a written language. They could build a fort. They had plenty of, they did all the right things. It's just that they were usually betrayed by their own. And they were always betrayed by their own in some sort of way. And in that way,
they were betrayed by the white people as well. I mean,
yes,
they didn't invite the white people into their territories.
No.
They put up with the white people and their ways, and like Logan said in his speech, I tried to be a white person, you know,
Yeah.
and look what happened, you know,
Yes. Oh
and I
yeah.
had to take my revenge, you know,
Yeah.
because my entire family was wiped out, you know. No offense to y'all, but I didn't invite this, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And to think that
Um,
that was 100 years later, when you'd have thought that Indian, relations would have been better. But, even in the early 1700s or mid 1700s, there were Indian wars. So
mhm.
the Indians on the East Coast were trying to defend their territory. They were trying to defend
Yeah.
any more folks coming in. I mean, even the first story, with the folks on Plymouth Rock, basically,
Yep.
just saying, hey, y'all get out of here, leave us alone, you and
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
ways,
Yeah.
and so it has been the white oppressor. And there was something that you had stated earlier about how many people there were,
Yeah.
and it was something like 20,000
For,
Indians
for
and
40
10,000.
40,000 colonists and 30,000 Indians.
Okay,
You know,
do you know how many boats does that take to get 40,000 colonists over there in the
well,
1670s?
yeah, but they'd been coming since the fifth.
No, but I'm just saying,
Oh yeah,
think
yeah.
about how many boats of people that is. There wasn't enough time for there to have been a generation of
Mhm.
Americans.
Yeah.
So if now I would also, I'm subjective in that maybe somebody threw an extra zero in there. Could have
No,
been.
no, not really, because it was 1670s. And when did the first colonists come to, Plymouth Rock? That was around 1540 or 1530. So they've been established there about 100 years.
Yeah, but still think about how many boatloads of people that
Oh
is.
yeah, it's still a lot of people
That's
coming,
my point. So,
you
but
know.
anyway, I just wanted to point that out,
Oh, I mean,
because
I believe a
back
lot
in
of.
those days, 40,000 people was a bunch.
Oh yeah, yeah. And considering 40,000 people, and then you got, say it's between 80 and 100 years, those people were having bunches of kids too. They were having 6, 8 kids apiece. So, not like nowadays where, you have one or two and you call it good.
Right.
Yeah, they're having boatloads of kids, multiplying fast. And I'm sure they were taking some Indian wives and so forth and so on. And there was people probably, you're right with the boats. They weren't all coming from England. There was people coming from, you know, all the countries. And, the British were coming there to collect all the goods, like wood, because I read places where, the wood in New England was great for the masts of the ships that they
Yep.
sailed and things like that. So that was a big
So
thing.
was Georgia,
Yeah.
with all the big pine trees. But also, what was important, was pine tar,
Mm,
turpentine,
turpentine.
because that was used to seal the the joints in the ships.
Yeah.
And
Um,
so, that was big business back in those days, because they could build the ships and everything, but they leaked. So they had to have the caulking and everything between the boards, and pine tar was the glue that held them together. So, but anyway.
oh yeah. 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 Um, like I said, there was lots of Indians and lots of people, and it's just inevitable that, there was a clash because you're moving a native civilization out of their homeland. And like I said, just like Black Hawk and all these other ones, they're trading land and all their stuff for money, goods, you know, like go shoot all the beaver and go shoot all the deer. And, you know, here, we'll give you guns. And the
That
next,
brings up something as well. In the first story, it was bring me 5
wolf
wolf
heads.
heads, or as many as you can for once a year. Now, that must have meant that there were trouble with wolves
Mm-hmm.
on the eastern coast.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, so there were wild wolves that ran in the Appalachians back in the day, you know.
Mhm.
So he was like, look, okay, as part of your penance or your, you know, that's not the word, but you know,
Yeah.
but anyway, so but I when you read it, I thought, now that's important, because to many native folk, the wolf is, you know, he's got his place in the stories, and
Yep.
you know, so that the king or whoever would say, hey, you know, you're going to supply us at least 5 wolf heads a year.
Yes. Yes. Well, you got to remember, there were buffalo on the East Coast too, until I think the last one was killed off in 1804.
Right.
You know,
But
so
I'm
he's
just pointing out that there used to be a lot of stuff on the East Coast that we just don't hear about wolves. You always hear about the wolves out in the West.
Yes. Well,
Is my
yeah, because
point.
those were the ones that were still left. Whereas, like I said, as people populated the East, they killed everything off in their path.
Oh yeah.
And, you
Oh
know,
my
and then
goodness.
they, like we were talking about before, the Cherokee, for instance, you know, they kill everything off, and then they realized these Cherokee guys, they were smart enough to make homes and have plantations, and they were doing good and becoming just like the white people. And now the white people looked at them as competition and said, wait a minute, right there, you're an Indian, I'm a white guy. Load your stuff up, we're taking your land, and we're gonna move you out to Oklahoma. You know, we don't care how much money you got. You're not white. Get out.
Yep.
I mean, can you imagine? Here you are, all of a sudden you're like, I got this big plantation, I got all these slaves, I'm rich, I'm doing good, I got blah blah blah. And all of a sudden there's a bunch of white guys that pull up and say, not anymore, get your stuff, you're on your march to Trail of Tears. Sorry,
Yeah,
buddy.
because this is America, and you know, it's no longer open and wild like your ancestors. And because it's America, we can make rules and laws, and we've decided your kind ain't welcome.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, that's
exactly.
basically what they did.
Yeah,
Okay, so you got the book.
I got it open, I just don't know what page to go to.
Okay, well, we kept yapping.
Yes.
On page 211.
Oh, 211, sorry. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Oh, I put it under Adobe now. Yeah, next week I'm gonna do Brant. So he's kind of New York and Canada. Well, there you go. Max Vision's in the house. What'd you say, 211?
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, and give a big shout out to all these people. What's the story called? I think I got the wrong one.
Son of Light kills the monster.
Oops, I got the monster, but I don't have the sunlight. And there we go. Yeah, I'll give a big shout out to Max Vision, who's in the house. We will have to kill all the buffalo because they fart global climate stuff. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Scotty Boy's in the house. And Tempric Lee Mentel is in the house. Hey, thank you for coming. They leave a lot of good comments. Aztec and Mayans and Archer, Tartarians, Shroud of Turin. Oh, yeah, I got to do the one on the Shroud of Turin. Yeah. Mary Wins, Lady Spitfire, Nicholas Burnett, S. Lee. Geez, we got all these people in here. Max G. Thank you for coming.
Greetings, everybody.
Max G had a good read on Ancestor. And Chloe's in the house. And Elderberry. I think I got everybody. Okay, let's see. Here we go. And ta-da! There we go.
I may have read this before. Parts of this are familiar to me, but the whole story isn't familiar. So, but I've read through this book so many times. But anyway, whether we've done it before or not, it's been quite a while. And this being what, episode 52?
Yes, a whole year with the episodes.
Yeah. So we've been at this a while, and we thank you all for tuning in. So if I've read this one before, it's been a while back. So are we ready? Here, let me get a swallow of some good old coffee. We want to say hi to Bob out there, by the way.
Yes. Bob is doing us no favors doing us favors today by leaving us alone.
Doing us favors. Oh, that's right. And for those of you, I didn't participate in any way with Halloween, just a personal thing, where it used to be a big holiday for me. But I just want to say, Happy Day of the Dead. For the Catholics, today is All Saints Day. With the Mexican folks and whatever, today is a solemn day in that they set up little altars, they put food out, they remember that it's Day of the Dead, in that, you see them with skeletons and doing stuff, and it seems really spooky and creepy, but they're actually honoring their dead. So to the November the 1st, and sometimes I'll going up as far as November the 3rd, depending on the society or the village or whatever. But it's to remember all of the dead who have passed before. So Halloween is the spookiness and blah, blah, blah. But the following day is to remember they're dead with honor. So I just want to say honor to all those who have passed before, as part of, Day of the Dead.
Anyway, before we get started, I want to tell you, so I did some research and I found out that the Halloween, the 31st, and this may correspond back longer or beginning of these rituals, because Halloween and the Day of the Dead is all a ritual derived from, either religions or ceremonies on some corresponding link to the universe, right? But Did you know that the torrid meteor shower starts on the 31st, and it usually continues, to like 5th or 6th, or I think it's the 12th, but it also, so it's the thickest during that time that people are doing all the celebrating the Day of the Dead and stuff. And I'm wondering if this has a correlation to do with all of that stuff.
It would depend on how far back the torrid meteor shower goes.
And I do believe it probably goes back, thousands of years, I would imagine.
I'm not sure, but my point is that it would, depend on that.
But it also, before it was all of this stuff, a lot of cultures would celebrate this as the new year too. A new year, it would start in November, not in January. And
what you want to understand why? Like right now, they have just picked all of the cotton. Well, most of it. They've combined all the peanuts. I mean, most of it. So this is the end of the season.
Yes.
And so September, it's the harvest moon. October, I don't know what moon it's called, but to the point though. So it would be the end of the year because they're through with all of their gathering.
Yes.
And winter's coming on, all the leaves are falling, some places have got snow. So it would be the end of the season, which could to some be the end of the year. I absolutely see that.
And to mark that occasion, you would get that meteor shower, and every year at the same time the meteor shower come by, and it's the end of the season.
Very interesting.
I thought about it. It's a little one of those things I started putting together, and I'm like, Well, there's got to be something to this. There's got to be something to it.
Yep.
It's like the eclipse of the moon. It comes by and then people, oh yeah, the moon turns and this phase of the moon is the harvest moon and this one's this moon and that means this. And there's all something to these things. So anyway, okay, I'll shut up now. All right.
Here, let me get another swallow now that we yacked for 5 minutes. This is from the Hopi. Son of Light kills the monster. Man Eagle, a frightful monster, had laid waste to the whole country. With his sharp talons, he seized women and girls, wives and maidens. He flew off with them to his home above the clouds, where he abused them for 4 nights before eating them up. Among those abducted by Man Eagle was the young wife of Son of Light. Within hours, this hero was on their trail, and along the way he met the Pinon maidens, dressed in grass and pinon bark. With them were Spider Woman and Mole. Where are you going? These spirit people asked Son of Light. Man Eagle has stolen my wife, he answered. I am going to rescue her, but I have to get there in a hurry before he kills her. This is bad, said Spider Woman, but never fear, I'll help you. And to the Pinon maidens, she asked, you girls gather pinon resin and shape it into a copy of Man Eagle's flint arrow shirt that no weapon can penetrate. Be quick. The Pinon maidens gathered the resin and made a shirt exactly like Man Eagle's. And when they had finished it, Spider Woman sprinkled sacred corn pollen over it and chanted an invocation. Then she turned herself into a tiny spider no bigger than a grain of salt and crawled up on Son of Light's right ear. Here I am, she said, where I can tell you what to do if you get into trouble. The next step is up to Mole. Mole burrowed a passage through the mountain up to the top so that Son of Light could get to the summit without being seen. When they came out onto the mountaintop, they saw that they were still far below Man Eagle's home in the clouds. Spider Woman said, I'll call some good birds to help us. The first to answer her call was the spotted eagle. Son of Light, Mole, and Spider Woman climbed onto his back, and he spread his wings and began circling upwards. Higher and higher he flew until at last he was exhausted. I can go no further, he said. Spider Woman then called on Hawk, who came at once, flying wingtip to wingtip with the spotted eagle. Mole and Son of Light with Spider Woman, still perched on his right ear, walked over the wings onto Hawk's back. The hawk carried them higher, but after a while, his strength gave out too. This is as high as I can go, he said. Spider Woman called for the gray hawk to take over. Again, Son of Light, Mole, and Spider Woman changed birds, and the gray hawk flew up higher than the others. Still, it was not high enough, and 3 friends transferred to the back of the red hawk, best of all the flyers. The red hawk flew through a hole in the clouds, right to the White House that was the home of Man Eagle. Thanking the red hawk for carrying them so far, Son of Light, Spider Woman, and Mole got down and walked boldly up to the house. Look at the ladder to the entrance, said Spider Woman to Son of Light. Its rungs are sharp obsidian knives. They'll cut your fingers off if you try to get up there. What shall we do? Asked Son of Light. Go pick some sumac berries. Spider Woman said. Son of Light gathered the berries and returned to her. Now feed them to Horned Toad over there, she said. Son of Light popped the berries into the wide mouth of Horned Toad, who chewed them into a gooey paste, which he spit onto the palm of Son of Light's hand. Now smear what Horned Toad has given you on the sharp edges of the rungs, Spider Woman told him. As Son of Light smeared the edges, they immediately became blunt so that he could climb up without having his fingers cut off. Spider Woman was still behind his right ear, while Little Mole had burrowed himself in Son of Light's hair. With his two hidden companions, Son of Light stepped into Man Eagle's home. The first thing he saw was Man Eagle's magic flint arrow shirt. Magic flint arrowhead shirt hanging from a viga. Quickly as a flash, Son of Light hung the counterfeit shirt on that rafter and put the real shirt on. They were so alike that not even Son of Light could tell them apart. He went into the second room and found his wife, her hands tied behind her back. I've come to free you, he told her. Flee, she cried, run quickly. No one who enters here ever leaves alive. Don't be afraid, he answered, untying her hands. We'll come out of here alive and happy. Man Eagle was asleep in the next room, but Spider Woman was carrying a hear-nothing charm, which prevented their noise from reaching his ears. Unaware that strangers were in his house, he awoke and put on his flint arrow shirt, and then went into the next room. Now I will enjoy the beautiful girl, he thought, but instead found himself face to face with Son of Light. Who are you? Asked Man Eagle. How dare you come here? You have stolen my wife, and I'm taking her back now. Maybe you will, and maybe you won't, said Man Eagle. You're speaking big words, but first you'll have a contest with me. What kind of contest? Inquired Son of Light. A smoking contest, said Man Eagle. The monster brought out a huge pipe as long as a good-sized man and filled it with tobacco. We will both smoke this, he told Son of Light, and whoever weakens and faints is the loser. If you lose, I have the right to kill you and possess your wife. If you win, you can take her back. Now, Man Eagle's magic tobacco was poisonous enough to stun anyone who was not used to it, though it no longer had an effect on him. But while Man Eagle explained the rules of the contest, Mole quickly burrowed a hole in the floor underneath the spot on which Son of Light was sitting. Mole made a passage all the way down through the earth to the outside, and as the man and the monster puffed away, the smoke passed right through Son of Light and through the hole into the outside air. The two smoked and smoked until Man Eagle got dizzy from his own magic tobacco and had to stop. Son of Light, on the other hand, was unaffected. Filled to the bursting point with smoke, Man Eagle stepped outside the house to clear his head. Son of Light followed, and they both saw dense clouds of smoke covering the whole sky. I wonder how he did it, thought Man Eagle. Aloud, he said, well, you win this contest, but this is only the first. Now comes the second. Man Eagle brought forth two huge elk antlers. Take this one, he told Son of Light, and I'll take the other. Each of us will try and break his own in two. If you fail to break yours with your hands, I shall kill you and possess your wife. The antler that Man Eagle had given his rival was actually a magical piece of stone, the hardest stone in the world. The antler that Man Eagle had kept for himself was a false antler made of brittle wood. Quick as a flash, just before the contest began, Spider Woman exchanged the two elk antlers. She did it with such lightning speed that not even the eye of Man Eagle could follow her. The rivals took up their antlers, and Son of Light broke his easily, but Man Eagle could not break his, however hard he tried. I wonder how he did that, thought the monster. He was not sure of himself now. Well, this was just child's play, something to warm us up, said Man Eagle. Now for the third contest. What is it this time? Asked Son of Light. Step outside with me, said Man Eagle. They went out, and the monster pointed to two huge pine trees near his house. You choose one of those trees, and I will choose the other. And he who fails to pull his tree up by the roots loses the contest. If I win, I'll kill you and possess your wife. So be it, answered Son of Light. Man Eagle chose the tree which he thought had the shallower roots. Remember, he told Son of Light, if you fail to pull up your tree, trunk, branches, roots and all, you lose. No matter what I do. During these preparations, Mole had burrowed beneath Son of Light's tree and gnawed through all the roots. Son of Light pulled it up easily, while Man Eagle could not uproot his. It pleased me to let you win once more, he told Son of Light, but you must win the fourth and last contest. To himself he said, I wonder how he did it. This young man is really strong. What do you propose? Asked Son of Light. Watch me, answered Man Eagle. He began carrying into his biggest room heaps of food, meat of all kinds, beaky bread and cornbread of all kinds, mush and gruel of all kinds, squash and bean dishes of all kinds, baskets, pots, cups, and dippers full of food. Making 2 mountains of it all, he told Son of Light, this is your heap, and that over there is mine. You must eat your heap all at once without leaving a single scrap. If you can't do it, I'll kill you and possess your wife. I'm sure to win this one, Man Eagle said to himself. The young man is puny compared with me. He can't absorb all this food. Again, Mole had dug a tunnel underneath Son of Light. As quickly as Son of Light emptied a dish, the food passed right through him and through the tunnel to some place outside the house. In no time, Son of Light had eaten the whole mountain of meat, corn, squash, beans, picky, and mush. Man Eagle tried to match him dish for dish, but could not. Well, said Son of Light, now I'll take my wife and go home. Not quite yet, said Man Eagle. In the end, it comes down to this. Which of us is invulnerable? Which of us can withstand the flames of a mighty fire? I can. Can you? We shall see. Man Eagle made 2 huge piles of dry wood. You sit on this one and I'll sit on that, he said. Your wife can set fire to them once we're in position. If you can withstand the fire, then I'll do whatever you say. Now, thought Man Eagle, I can get rid of this upstart. My magic flint-arrowed shirt is fireproof. but the young fellow will burn up. Son of Light's wife set fire to the 2 wood piles. Of course, Son of Light was wearing the real magic flint arrowhead shirt. Coated with ice, clear and cold like crystal, it protected him from the flames. In the process, part of the ice melted and extinguished the fire. But the shirt of Man Eagle, made out of resin, ignited in a flash, so thoroughly consumed Man Eagle that only his ashes remained. Then Spider Woman whispered into Son of Light's ear, "Take this powerful medicine of mine in your mouth and spurt it all over Man Eagle's ashes." Son of Light did what Spider Woman said, and as he spat the medicine over the ashes, Man Eagle arose, transformed into a good-looking man. Spider Woman addressed this eagle turned into a man. "Have you learned your lesson? Will you stop killing and eating people? Will you stop stealing and abusing wives and maidens? Will you promise?" Eagle turned into man said, "I promise I will never do evil again. Never." Son of Light joyfully claimed his wife, while Spider Woman brought all the Hopi people from whom Man Eagle had killed back to life again. Then they all got on the backs of the eagle, hawk, gray hawk, and red hawk, and these friendly birds carried them safely back to their homes. Retold from various 19th century versions. Now, having read through it, I'm pretty sure I did read this one before, because I remembered about the eagles having them trading places. But anyway, it's been a while since I did read that story, and
it was a good one.
I still like the story because you know, no matter what the monster laid before him, he kept besting him. But between, you know, that little mole sure did help him. That's all I gotta say, you know.
Yep. Amber Dawn's in the house. Hello. Anyway, let's see. Lady Spitfire says, "Yeah, I feel bad about being so insensitive and native and prejudice as a kid. When playing in the role of an Indian, we would always say, and hold up our hands." Yeah, well, you know, when you're a kid, you're just, you know, you're watching Indian shows on TV and things like that. And that's what they were doing. They were just, you know, you're just playing cowboys and Indians and things like that, you know. Yeah, you're just having fun with it. It doesn't mean much, you know. I mean, you don't know things like that. It's, you know, cops and robbers. Doesn't mean that if you played the robber that you're going to be growing up and rob banks or something, right?
Right. And you know, when I was a kid, we played war, and so somebody had to be the bad guy, you know, and nobody wanted to be the Germans. You know, nobody wanted to be the Germans. So, but it was, you know, it was just two sides. It was A and B. Yeah. And it was sort of implied that if you're the bad guys, then you must be the Germans or the Japs, depending, you know, back in my day. You know, but, you know, growing up in the early 60s like that, you know, the end of the war was still really fresh in folks' minds. And the Korean War had just ended, sort of thing. And the Vietnam War was just getting started. So playing war was like, you know, the thing to do. But it was with broomsticks and pine cones for grenades. And sometimes they were oranges or grapefruit, and those hurt.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, you know, when you're a kid, you're just out there having fun. That's what it all boils down to. You know, kids nowadays, they do a lot of playing video games instead of going outside. So, you know,
Oh
each his
yeah,
own.
we were learning how to be sneaky and hide behind trees, and I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was a real. We were very active in the
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood. I mean, we could sneak and hide, and we learned things back then as kids because there wasn't many central heat and air conditioners back in them days, and folks had their windows open. So if you
Yep.
could sneak up to somebody's house and listen in,
Mm-hmm.
woo, we were almost peaking toms. I mean,
Yep.
we were just curious kids, not necessarily knowing what we were looking at, but we just wanted to look.
Yep.
I could or
Isby
listen.
says BB guns. Yeah, you'll shoot your eye out.
Oh, we weren't allowed to have BB guns, but we had slingshots. Well, we had down in Tampa, and we're in our neighborhood at the time. We had oranges and grapefruits.
Mm-hmm.
And those were great bombs. I mean, but we were not allowed to have. None of us kids in the neighborhood were allowed to have BB guns. It's strange, but
Yeah.
they were outlawed in our neighborhood because it could put your eye out.
Yeah, this is so true. This is so true.
But I could go visit my cousins in the country, and they had BB guns. So, but and it was allowable. It's like, okay, you can play with your cousin's BB gun. All right, we'll let you. Okay, all right. But you come back into town, nah. So we had slingshots.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
So the card for today is snake.
Snake. Ooh.
And it's transmutation.
We haven't had snake in a while.
Nope. And so it's number 6 in the book, by the way. Snake, come crawling. There's fire in your eyes. Bite me, excite me. I'll learn to realize. The poison transmuted brings eternal flame. Open me to heaven to heal me again. Snake medicine people are very rare. Their initiation involves experience and living through multiple snake bites, which allows them to transmute all poisons, be they mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional. The power of snake medicine is the power of creation, for it embodies sexuality, psychic energy, alchemy, reproduction, and ascension or immortality. The transmutation of the life-death rebirth cycle is exemplified by the shedding of a snake's skins. It is the energy of wholeness, cosmic consciousness, and the ability to experience anything willingly and without resistance. It is the knowledge that all things are equal in creation. I think these words are just, I hope they resonate with people. The willingly and without resistance. It is the knowledge that all things are equal in creation, and that those things which might be experienced as poison can be eaten, ingested, integrated, and transmuted if one has the proper state of mind. Thoth, the Atlantean, who later returned as Hermes and was the father of alchemy, used the symbology of 2 snakes intertwining around a sword to represent healing. Complete understanding and acceptance of the male and female within each organism creates a melding of the 2 into 1, thereby producing divine energy. Complete understanding and acceptance of the male and female within each organism creates a melding of the 2 into 1, thereby producing divine energy. Remember that, folks. This medicine teaches you on a personal level that you are a universal being. Through accepting all aspects of your life, you can bring about the transmutation of the fire medicine. This fire energy, when functioning on the material plane, creates passion, desire, procreation, and physical vitality. On the emotional plane, it becomes ambition, creation, resolution, and dreams. On the mental plane, it becomes intellect, power, charisma, and leadership. When the snake energy reaches the spiritual plane, it becomes wisdom, understanding, wholeness, and connection to the Great Spirit. If you have chosen this symbol, there is a need within you to transmute some thought, action, or desire so that wholeness may be achieved. This is heavy magic. But remember, magic is no more than a change in consciousness. This is heavy magic, but remember, magic is no more than a change in consciousness. Become the magician or the enchantress. Transmute the energy and accept the power of fire. Now, I'm not sure if it was upside or downside. It kind of came out sideways, so I'm going to read the contrary. If you've drawn this symbol in reverse, you may have chosen to mask your ability to change. Look at the idea that you may fear changing your present state of affairs because this may entail a short passage into discomfort. Now, a lot of us are going through this kind of thing right now. Does this comfort keep you from assuming the viewpoint of the magician within? Is the old pattern safe, reliable, and also a rut? In order to glide beyond that place, which has become safe but non-productive, become the snake. Release the outer skin of your present identity. Move through the dreamlike illusion that has insisted on static continuity and find a new rhythm as your body glides across the sands of consciousness. Like a river winding its way toward the great waters of the sea, immerse yourself in that water and know that a single droplet which you represent is being accepted by the whole. Feel snake's rhythm and you will dance freely, incorporating those transmuting forces of the universe as a part of your sensual dance of power. Release the outer skin of your present identity. So I can relate to this in that after my heart attack and everything, I'm going through a phase and it's hard to describe. I've got all these new medicines and it's making me feel kind of weird and whatever, and plus I'm going through all these other things. So I get this shedding your skin and moving beyond it. So I don't know about y'all, but this has a message for me. Now I want to tell another story. I've told this story before, and some folks have heard it, but in this context, it bears repeating. In that there's the old story of the young Indian brave who was headed up the mountain for a vision quest. And on his way, as he gets up to a higher elevation where there's some snow, he comes across the snake. And the snake is like, oh, listen, carry me back down. Help me. I'm cold and I'm going to die up here and I don't know what I'm going to do. And the young brave is like, yeah, but you're a snake. You'll bite me. And the snake says, no, I promise you, if you'll take me back down the mountain where it's warm, I promise not to bite you. So the young brave thinks about it. Well, maybe this is part of his quest and everything. So he picks up the snake and puts him in his shirt and he carries him back down the mountain. Well, as soon as he's getting ready to gets to the bottom of the mountain, he's getting ready to release the snake and the snake bites him. And the brave was like, well, wait a minute. I did what you asked and I brought you down and you bit me. Why'd you do that? And the snake looked at him and he said, because I'm a snake. Now the brave dies. Is as the story stops there. But if you listen to the rest of the story about snake people, the snake was like a prince among the snake clan, and he had gotten stuck up on the mountain. And so to honor the brave, he bit him and made the brave a part of the snake clan. So now if you listen to the story where he bit him, yeah, because I'm a snake. Okay, well, then the young man dies. Okay, but if the rest of the story is Paul Harvey would say back in the day, that yes, but it was an honor. He made him part of the snake clan. So, but anyway, but snakes, so the idea that, the snakes shed their skin, it's a new evolution. So if you kind of feel cringy or whatever, it's fall, winter's coming on, shake off that, sweaty summer and, and embrace, and winters are coming. So embrace it,
Yeah, that's the thing. The snake has been represented as so many things in history of wisdom and of magical power and as a a demon or enemy or a Satan. It could be many things. Plus there's also, like you said, the misinterpretation of stories. The guy who first heard that story and got to the part of, well, he bit him, he just went and stopped there. And then everybody would have said, oh, yeah, because I'm a snake. And then the rest of the story, it's like, like what's that saying? The truth shall set you free, right?
Right.
You've heard that, but people leave out the first part of it. What's the first part of that? Knowing the truth shall set you free. Not the truth shall set you, knowing the truth. Because if you don't know the truth, how can it set you free? But
and
if you
don't accept the truth,
yes, exactly.
I mean,
knowing, but it changes the whole meaning of that phrase. Knowing the truth shall set you free. It means, to me, it seems, and I'm sure it does to you and everybody else, that when I say, oh, the truth shall set you free, means like the truth is like having this bottle. This bottle will set you free. No, because the truth is not set like this bottle. It's out there in the ether, and then you have to know which bottle it is. It's not just there. You have to know the bottle, right?
Right. Well, back in the old days, for example, they knew how to plant on the moon. They
Yes.
knew how to use the season. And so that was a truth to them.
Yes.
But this is just a bad example, but to what the old folks did, they had certain things that they believed in, and they knew it because it happened every year. It was what was acceptable, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in that, the truth, that in knowing the truth is my point.
Yes.
So they knew the truth that after certain events and in the spring, and okay, it's going to be about, we shouldn't have any more, like March 15th is about the last day of any snow down here in the South, and depending on where you live, and there are certain dates and times that just got, so you knew over years the truth.
Yep.
So
yes.
you know the truth. That's
knowing.
Is the reason I'm using this as an example.
Yeah.
But if you don't know it, meaning if you folks these days, they oh, it's they don't know that kind of thing.
Lucky Smith has got it. King James Bible version, John 8:32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Yeah, because most people just know the first part of it. The truth will set you free. And or the last part of it, I should say. And they take that little section, but if you don't add the rest of it to it, it means a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's much deeper.
Yes. Then you will know the truth, and then the truth will set you free. Yeah. So you have to do, it's telling you, you will have to do something. You will have to search for it or whatever. Then you will know the truth. And
Well,
the
that's
truth
like,
will set you free. Yeah. You can't get the truth for nothing.
that's like in the shaman thing, in the spiritual realm, for the Native Americans, they understood Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas white people, I've always said this, most of them just don't get it. And until you really study it and go into it and like live as many years as I have, studying it and living it and I'm still a pioneer. I'm still homesteading my place after 40 years of being here. And and I'm still learning stuff, but anyway, with that said, the knowledge that you acquire from living somewhere, just for example, I took some deer corn out in the woods, and the next day I went to check to see if anybody had come by, and sure enough, it looked like somebody had come in there with a vacuum cleaner and it sucked up every bit of corn that I had thrown out back there. So it's like, so within a 24-hour period, I don't know how many deer, I don't know how big, but the corn's gone. So that's knowledge, that's truth, that's accepting nature, that's being able to follow nature's whatever. I had a sense that the deer were going through there. I wanted to prove it to myself, Now this is the nature of things. So native folks, this is, these are things that they would just like, yep, it's natural to them. Where a lot of other people, they just would not get it at all. And so that the awareness of the universe, believing in the nature of natural things, for me, it's always that we're surrounded by air and molecules and energy. This is the universe. It is the creator. We are part of the source. We are all star children. Quit looking for where God is and just understand we're swimming in it. We're swimming in the Great Spirit, regardless of what religion you may have been brought up in. It's all around us. And if you can accept that basic truth and really believe it, you will be so much better off in the universe. There are some people that go, yeah, I get it. No, yeah, but you don't really believe it. Well, no, no, but you're kind of fluffing it off. When you believe it like native peoples do, then there's going to be an enlightenment. I will just say.
Oh, I totally agree with that. The great mystery, as the Indians would say.
Haven't you learned more since you and I have been doing these stories and we have been researching this? Don't you feel different spiritually?
Yes, absolutely, I do. I really do. I really do. I've learned so much. It really makes the outlook of things I look at different.
And you didn't, when you start, now I've been reading stories for a long time, but you being newer to this than myself, now it has brought me extra enlightenment in reading these different stories and so forth, and having conversations like we're having now. But for you who just started reading these stories as more as a hobby and an interest and but I don't think you started this with the intent to get spiritual out of it.
No, thought it'd be an interesting topic. I remember some of the first shows I did on this was like I was doing it on canoes, and I thought it was going to be like more outdoorsy stuff, and learn about the buffalo and learn about the horses, and then little by little it transformed into the Indian culture and the Indians themselves and the great chiefs and the great battles and things, and why did they do what they did. Like I said, it wasn't so much the battle as it was who were these guys and why were they all pissed off and what were they trying to protect from, what was the point. And now I'm finding out that the people were trying to convert them, take their land, change them as a people, who they were.
I mean, to the point that when I brought it up earlier, that the king had that dude for his advisor.
Mm-hmm.
So you knew he was writing stuff down. Where are those writings?
Well, I'm sure they got all burnt up.
A curiosity, but
No.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
We don't want those stories coming out. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
Well,
anyway, I'm glad that we have done this. I'm hoping that these stories and pulling cards and reading the different things about the animals and what they represent, what these things can mean to us spiritually and as people. And, for every time I read the snake or one of these, cards, there's always something in there, even at my age, that I still get something out of it. There's still something there. After all these years, after all this time, there's still something there in the message. So I hope it relates to other people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it'll be out there for a long time. We got it on YouTube and we got it on Odyssey and Brighteon, and I'm doing shorts with it. And if we touch a few people and they get learn a little knowledge from all this, it was well worth the journey. Plus ourselves.
Right. And so with that, as we get ready to close this, because it's been 2 hours and we're trying not to make it lengthy, I want to thank everybody for, having, stayed and listened. And we both do hope that you learned something out of it. And it's not going to be the same as me, and you're not going to learn the same as Robert. You're going to find it in your own path. But believe it and allow it to happen. Allow the snake and the transmutation, shed off the skin and say, because, let me understand a new surrounding, the other things. Let me bring other things in. And, where maybe before you might have said, nah, I don't care. You might go, well, it's possible.
That's true. This is true. Absolutely. Like I said, I feel like I bring some knowledge, and then if you get a spark from that, if something touches you, go out and research it yourself. It might lead to new paths and horizons for yourself.
And understandings within your own self.
Yes, exactly. So go out and do the work. Well, remember, okay, we got to get going. And
we got to be the frequency.
Yes. You going to have a show tonight?
Yeah, for a little bit, I think.
All right. Okay. I'm sure everybody's looking forward to that. Okay, everyone. Remember, go out and do something nice for somebody and make your day, make their day, make yourself feel better. You don't have to go and donate lots of time or money or anything like that. Just wave at your neighbor, smile a little bit, goes a long way. Remember, everybody,
smile goes a long way.
That is being the frequency you want to receive. So go out and be the frequency you want to receive, everyone.
Cheers.
Love you all, everybody. Peace, everyone.